Hi there, everybody. Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. Going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of March 9th through 15th. There's really not a lot going on this week. Mercury retrograde, we're in the middle, deeply in that cycle, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But we're going to have Venus sextiling Pluto the early part of the week, and then Jupiter's going direct, which I talked about in the monthly, and I'll review that a little bit again. And then next weekend, we got an ornery Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars. So that's the main things I'll be talking about. Let me just do a little business first. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that is on YouTube. And if you like what you see and you have a YouTube account, I'd really like you to become a follower. And when you do become a follower, please don't forget to turn your notifications on so that you know when the blog is posted. I don't have the time to notify people myself. And also, it's available on podcast still. It was a podcast for years before it was a YouTube channel. It's been a YouTube channel 6 years now, podcast long before that. So exact same audio copy of the video here, and that frees you up to be able to listen to it, when you're doing something else, working out or whatever, like you don't have to watch the video. Also has its own Instagram page, Astrological Winds channel. If you become a follower there, then you'll see the link to the YouTube come up in your um, newsreel every Monday. And then the other thing is, it is available on the website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. I also have months of past blogs, the links to them embedded there too, if you need to go back to the monthly or the yearly report or something like that. So you can check that out. I have a little earth calendar, and that also has all my professional services listed and the prices there. So I've been doing charts professionally for 24 years now, and that was after 7 years of schooling and training and to do that professionally. So I would love to do that for you, or if you know someone looking for that, please refer them there. And remember, I do ask, since the blog is a free service, that everyone pass it along to someone else in their contacts. And if you can do that every time, I know, like, some of us, our contacts lists are big. So, like, if you've done it for me once or twice, cool. But, look in there again. And, every time you watch it, if you can find someone else, to check, because remember, most of the world believes in astrology now. It's not something that's like something that's far out, or, So, don't get self-conscious about it, is my point. If anything, help spread the word, because this is how we can work with the energy, which is the whole point of the blog, and make our lives better, make it more harmonious, make it more self-fulfilling. Even if you don't know astrology, if you listen to what these meanings are, it should help you each week in your decision-making processes if you're aware of that. So that's what I really want to do. Now, once again, and I have had a couple people tell me, it's that they really like how I, show how these events, the aspects are working out in the world too. I mentioned, actually, now 2 weeks ago in the blog, 2 weeks ago, there was the Mars Uranus square on Friday. It was Friday, I believe the 28th. Is that what it was? 27th of February. And I said that week, watch out. That's a trigger day. That's a day where we know the world's in a really, tense place. And the energy of that day is explosive. It's surprising. It's big events that are usually caused by men or humans or by natural disasters. And that was the day that the United States and Israel basically started a war against Iran, right? They started bombing Iran. So there you go, like right to the T, exactly matching that energy. And it's almost kind of like an I told you so there, without like beating my chest too much on it. But like, yeah, and no, and the thing is, what I do want to mention about that now too, that they started the war basically right at a time when Mercury was in the retrograde zone. is that it's not going to go the way people expect it to be. Like whatever the expectation of the people who who made those decisions, it's not going to go according to the plan that they have, right? And when does war ever actually do that? Let's just check the word Afghanistan and what that's meant to the Soviet Union and the United States and any other civilization that's tried to go in there and go to war and take that over. What does that mean? So when wars very rarely go the way that those who are the aggressors expect them to go. And when you started in Mercury retrograde, you know, that I can guarantee it's not going to go the way you expect it to go. And then, it's funny too that Mercury retrograde, well, I talked about it's in Pisces, a very weak sign, where it's being driven by emotions that are wrapped around belief systems that can be very blind and fanatical, even deceptive, right? So look at how much the energy of this Mercury retrograde is fitting this. It's basically a holy war. That's what we got going on. We've got the Crusades, the modern version of the Crusades going on. Like if we went forward in history a few hundred years, right? And this could just be looked at as another version of another crusade going on right now. And it is, to me, also a really big indicator of the age of Pisces dying away. That, we bottomed out in our ignorance and by belief in that age, like literally like a Kali Yuga kind of age, and now, like, that age is in its own self-destructive loop right now. And what could be the end of an age could be called Armageddon for that age, even, right? So but what we've got going on now is, since we are moving into the age of Aquarius, into an age of technology and science, the battle going on now is with weaponry that is a lot more efficient at killing and destroying, right, than it was earlier in the age of Pisces, when it was like hand to hand combat during crusades, like swords and things like that. But now, going into the age of Aquarius, we've been on that cusp, in my opinion, now for basically 95 years, that we're in that transition. All this new technology of those years and has been really applied by humans to weapons, instead of, like, imagine the good things we could have made with our minds instead, if we didn't have so much bought into this age of Pisces and conflicting belief systems and believing there's an us versus them kind of energy. But, like, I think, this is, really showing how the astrology really fits some of this stuff. And one of the other things I wanted to just mention before I go into the weekly, since I have a little extra time this week and there's not a lot to talk about, it's that, I'm an astrologer. I have clients every week, and I have regular clients too. And people, like, right now, this Mercury retrograde in Pisces, we're halfway through it, and I'm really getting a good intuitive feel of how, like, what I'm seeing in people is that it's a very disheartening energy going on right now in the world, and everybody seems to be falling into a pattern of escapism in some form or another. Whatever, whether it's, Pisces is all about escapism, in its negative ways, like inebriation, lost in our own fantasy world, lost in a world of being the great pretender, the great deceiver. A lot of that going on with people right now, in relationships with themselves, even. And so there's a lot of confusion I'm seeing in this one, which is what I expected. I said that a couple of weeks ago when Mercury went into Pisces, but there's this sense of helplessness, hopelessness going on, that and people's behavior is seemingly getting more and more confused, more and more ungrounded, more and more escapist in many different ways, and then and then they're not being honest with themselves, which means they're not being honest with each other either. So yeah. So this week we're really deep into the Mercury retrograde cycle. And really, remember, when Mercury's retrograde, you want to really not be starting new things, because they're going to go off, they're not going to go according to plan. And so what you want to do is just keep plugging away at what you're doing. And what I wanted to mention first this Monday, because I mentioned it in last week's blog on Sunday, we had the second exact hit of Mercury retrograde trining Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is going direct. So that means Jupiter is stationary right now in a very strong position. And not only is it strong in because it's stationary, but it's also strong by sign right now. It's in Cancer, the sign that it's exalted in. So, I really think this Monday is really it's still another day, even Tuesday, where we can really use this Mercury trine Jupiter in relation to the way the Mercury retrograde is, like within ourselves. We can start making plans for our future. And this one, you know, it's a time where we can start to organize within ourselves, like in an abstract way, our thoughts, literally start organizing our thoughts. And that way, when we do that, we start to tap into some new creative thoughts, creative intellectual kind of energy. A lot of times, once again, when it's Mercury and Jupiter, we're talking about our businesses, we're talking about our careers, our occupations. That's a really good place to put that kind of energy. Um, but it also, especially with the Mercury retrograde too, having us kind of more within and introverted, should give us a lot of perceptive insights right now, that are our truths, that are showing us what our truth is. And it gives us, like I said, a very open and tolerant mind, which we need to fight a lot of that Piscean energy, which, like I said, can get very dualistic and fight each other off. So this is like, I really like this week for not only doing those kind of plans, but any kind of deep studying that you need to do by yourself, like just using that introverted energy, that more wide and tolerant viewpoint of wanting to learn more, and wanting to bring that into organizing some kind of plan for the future, with a good chance that being having to do with your business or occupation. This would be a really good week to just do some real deep study on that, and really work on that. Now, interestingly enough, too, I just wanted to mention Mercury retrograde is conjunct the asteroid Pallas during all this. And the asteroid Pallas also has a lot to do with the intellect, with the mind, with creativity, right? So this is one that shows, once again, just like the Pisces, we can be very married intellectually to our ideas. And it shows we use communication and even the media to push them, just like propaganda. So think about that in relation to the stuff going on. Now, the one of the two new ones this week that I really wanted to talk about was on Tuesday. We have Venus sextiling Pluto. And this one is the effect of deepening relationships to a profound level emotionally, where we can make connections with people on a deeper level than we've ever had before, that can bring change into our lives, can bring opportunities to change and transform our lives, that we see as really beneficial, that we see as something very positive. Um, if the relationship is romantic or sexual that this is going on with, it can really reach profound levels. Like, really, that energy of love and romance and sexuality can literally change the consciousness of the people involved in the relationship. So I really like that. And it's one of these ones where Pluto really helps us see things deeply, and Venus has a lot to do with emotions, so we can see how we're reacting emotionally to relationships and even get insight about ourselves. But we can also understand very well what the other person wants. And if we're interested in deepening that, like we can really plug in with each other. Like we can be like an electric, two electric chords coming together, and boom, the energy, just rises up, so we can really feel the emotions very deeply now, and be very truthful to ourselves even about our emotions and what we need. And let's face it, in order to be successful in a relationship, we have to be truthful to ourselves first about what our emotions are and our emotional needs in them. But any kind of new relationship that starts during this energy is usually a very fated one, a very karmic one. A contract is out there to meet in this life, and have some really like energy transmute and transform during that. Now, this one can also bring financial opportunities, so look for that too. And once again, with the Mercury retrograde, it might just be like, oh, this is something I should look into this week. I might not be wanting to pull the trigger on it yet, but maybe I need to look into crypto or whatever it may be, like, or some kind of opportunity that, may be offered to me this week. It may be a time to really look into that on that kind of level and do the legwork on it, so to speak, do that Mercury retrograde of really looking into it in a study in deep way, use the Mercury Jupiter to support that. And then also, this is one where we have opportunities to either create or expose ourselves to art that elicits like really strong emotional responses to us. That art that literally transforms our consciousness again. So we can tap into energy like that on Monday and Tuesday too. Now, Tuesday is the day that Jupiter also goes direct, which I talked about at length in the monthly. But I will repeat a little of the information here. It's going direct at 15 degrees of Cancer, which is the sign of its exaltation, and it will remain in Cancer until July 1st. So we have a period between now and July 1st where Jupiter is working really well, and it will not go retrograde again until December 13th. On July 1st, it'll go into Leo, and it will go through the rest of the year in Leo, and then on December 13th, turn retrograde at 27 degrees of Leo. So it'll be done with Cancer on July 1st. But I wanted to just, remember when Jupiter is in Cancer, it's really strong in the sense of wanting to take care of loved ones. And that goes across society too. The society, Jupiter's a society planet. So this is where we want to take care of each other in our country or in our nation or whatever group we belong to. It can come right down to our families, very much so in Cancer, and our family and our community, even. And that's where we want to give support, and that's where we know we can get support. This is a time when we can look to the past and see the things that we did in the past to get security, and that we know that we can rely on those things again, like family and friends and community. And that we want also that to be an equal thing that we want to give to. So that like it's a very traditional energy here, and we feel solid in tradition personally, and we put that out with our loved ones first and our community second. Now, note in the world, Cancer is the sign of nationalism, and Jupiter is a societal sign. So this is going to be a time period where people are really going to get behind their countries and really want to support each other in their countries. And not surprisingly, we've got like all kinds of war going on right now, which, that's where when people really can rally behind their country and get very nationalistic and want to give and get support through their country. So very interesting. And it's also a time where we want to take care of our allies, too, when it comes to a bigger world stage with countries where they're our friends. So we're trying to look out for them. So you're going to see countries doing that over the next few months. Now, the other big thing is Sunday's Mercury retrograde conjunction to Mars in Pisces. Now, this is really explosive energy. Mercury and Mars together, especially what's going on in the world right now again. And when these two get together, our egos and our beliefs get really married, and we have a really hard time separating our thoughts from our beliefs. We become very subjective. Our thoughts and communications are driven by our beliefs, and that can make us very defensive, very reactionary. People can just explode in angry words or actions, and it's a triggering kind of energy. And once again, considering the way the world is right now, next weekend we'll probably get a lot of really reactive, intense energy in relation to the wars that are going on right now. Really, really will go up. But this is really about aggressive words. It's about words that challenge. It's about words that are not willing to listen to others, that they're not willing to back down. It's very competitive energy. It's the energy of someone looking for a fight. And even if you can control that energy, it doesn't mean everyone else around you can. So, like, you may be dragged into stuff just because you have to defend yourself against others who are acting that way. Now, what's the good thing with Mercury and Mars? Because conjunctions can go either way, right? They always can go either way. It's a 50-50 aspect. And it's excellent for using it for mental work, actually, for creative mental work. You can be very determined, very skillful, and get a lot done with that. And you know what your real concerns are, and you're willing to put energy into getting answers, resolving things. So that can be really useful on a personal level, as long as you don't get too defensive and aggressive and competitive and then start looking for some kind of fight. All right, so that's what I got this week. Like I said, it's a short week. Let's see what's going on next week. I didn't quite look yet. Let me look at my calendar really quickly here. Yeah, so next week we do have the equinox, of course. So the sun will be going into Aries, and I'll probably look at an equinox chart at some point. Again, that means we also have a new moon, and it's another critical degree one at 29 degrees of Pisces next week, and it's going to be involved in Uranus and in a positive way. So that's kind of cool. And it looks like the sun is going to catch up to both Saturn and Neptune really soon too. So by next week it'll hit Neptune, and the following week it'll hit Saturn. So definitely going to be talking a lot about that new moon. And also next week, we finally do get to the end of Mercury retrograde next weekend. So a lot more to look at next week than this week. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. You are going to pass the link along right now to somebody else. Thank you so much for doing that, since I've done this for you. If you'd like to give me a currency donation, any amount that you give is appreciated. It does cost me a little bit of money to put this thing out every month. My Cash App is $Matthew with two T's, Lawton, all one word, Laut, and Venmo at the at symbol, Matthew, two T's again. Then there's a hyphen in the middle, and Laut, and like even $5 helps me out, you guys. And the best way to help me though is I am a professional astrologer. That's my living, and we're all trying to support each other doing what we do best in this age of Aquarius. So when you are ready for a reading, or if you know someone looking for a reading, please check my website out, www.astrologicalwinds.com. I've been doing readings 24 years now. Was trained to do them by professionals for 7 years before that of schooling. I would love to do it for you or someone you know. If you've never gotten your birth chart done and and you're looking at this blog, then you should get it right on the top of your bucket list, because that thing is with you your whole life. And if you don't understand that, then you're not controlling your energy and power to the maximum that you can get. And, so it can really help you there understand so many things about your life. And it's so much different than getting a computer printout or trying to figure it out in a book or having a friend that dabbles. You get a much more holistic way of looking at your chart from a professional astrologer like myself or someone else. And always around your birthday, if you're into astrology, you should get a reading for your next year around your birthday, what I call predictive reading. It tells you what's going on for your next year, just like I just did for the week here. I do it specifically for you for the year. I also do relationship charts, relocation charts, children's charts, elections for the best timing, fixed star reading if you're looking for your deeper soul purpose and you really understand your natal chart well. Horary questions, specific questions. If you have a group, I do lectures, mini workshops, classes, mini readings for your event can even be done online, live. And if you're a student, I looks like I'm getting close to possibly being able to get students together from hopefully a beginner's class, although it could be intermediate too or both. But I really do need 4 committed prepaid students before I'm willing to do that in a live basis, which would be anywhere from 2 to 4 times a month if you're willing to do that commitment. All right. If you want to do any of that, please check the website out, where you can just email me directly, mattthue823@gmail.com. And thanks so much. Pass that link along, and I'll see y'all next week, and we'll talk about that new moon and the equinox. All right. Take care until then, folks.